These videos, this video, Eric Gardner, going 24 years all the way back to 1991, with the beating of Rodney King, video shot by bystanders who had the awareness, in this case, Fede and Santana, I'm blown away, the awareness and the courage to step up and pull out his camera and stay there and catch this whole scene. These make the entire difference between seeing action taken and not.
Technology alone cannot be the only solitary pathway to justice. I think what videos can do is provide a small route to getting accountability. I had a colleague, Rebecca McCrae at Take Part, who wrote a really interesting article that, you know, if you look at the 7 or 8 years between when Oscar Grant was killed in Oakland, California by a transit officer and when, you know, Walter Scott was killed a few weeks ago, what you see is, you know, video evidence that was taken seriously very quickly. You know, with Oscar Grant, that video evidence came out and it took weeks for that officer to be charged with manslaughter. In this case, it only took a few days. And I think because there's been such a movement around the country with folks from Black Lives Matter, with so many activists coming forward and actually putting a narrative to this, right? Because so many of these instances happen. And I think what you've seen in the past few years is that activists, Black activists specifically, have built a very powerful narrative.
I feel it's a shame that we have to create a narrative that has an audio visual component when in fact people have been saying for now hundreds of years that we're being abused, profiled, harassed, and terrorized. And now the speculation machines of the media, our media that we get to have, just because that speculation can give a perspective to a media spectacle that can be sold and maybe perhaps convince the public that maybe all these Black and brown people that have been saying all this time they've been being harassed and profiled, maybe we'll believe them. And so again, this is not a victory. A victory is to protect people from dying, not have videos of them dying. And so instead of just taking a video, if Mr. Santana said, "I am watching you," maybe Walter Scott would be alive.
I work here in Los Angeles and I represent several law enforcement agencies here in Southern California. And I was recently talking to some of my clients, both Black, Hispanic, and white, and all of them, because they were all involved in the same case, talking to me saying, "Gene, no one in our community trusts us. We can't do our job. We don't feel like we're being supported by the community. Why are we going out there, putting our lives on the line for those members of this community who aren't going to help us, aren't going to support us, aren't going to stand up and say, yes, these officers did nothing wrong." It is frustrating, and it's a morale a buster for them right now because they hear all this rhetoric that all cops are bad, and they're not. Yeah. We had a bad situation in Charleston, absolutely, and hopefully he will be held accountable. Not every shooting is necessarily a crime or something because the officer did wrong.